I'm a little bit edgy because I just had a donut. Woo! I'm not nervous. I'm chill. Here we go, guys. Here we go. That's notable. Hey, I'm Greg Marshall. This is That's Notable. I'm going to be interviewing people who have been recognized as notable marketing executives. So welcome to That's Notable. I hope you enjoy the conversations. Hi, everyone. Welcome to That's Notable, a podcast about notable people. My name is Greg Marshall. I'm interviewing people. Dylan Torres on the producing, and he does a great job of doing that. Today, we're interviewing Lisa Geason Bauer. She's extremely intelligent, amazing vibe. She's the president of Nashotah-based Evolution Marketing. She basically helps companies implement sustainability systems, but also does the marketing and communications side of that. And she's very good at what she does. She's won a lot of awards. She does mentoring. And like I said, she has the greatest vibe ever. So you're going to dig the conversation. And I'm excited for you to witness, like I did, what is truly notable about Lisa. Before we get to the show, though, just want to give a shout out to today's sponsor who makes this show possible, which is electricity. Electricity always lights up the room. All right, on to the show. So you talk about, it's clear where you are, what you're doing. You talk about often you feel like you're bucking the system. Tell me about that. What do you mean that you're kind of bucking the system sometimes?
So I'm a classically trained rural and environmental sociologist.
Say that again slower for simple people like me.
I'm a classically trained rural and environmental sociologist. So that means I study, when I was in school, I studied why people did what they did, and then how people interacted with nature, the environment, and rural communities versus urban communities. So all of that translates into, I'm a sustainability person at heart.
Yeah. So I often define leadership as disappointing people at the appropriate pace. And it sounds like that's what you're talking about a little bit. It's like, how do you help somebody, affirm somebody in what they're doing in a rural environment inside of the rhetoric and cognitive framework that they have about this topic? And then you got to change languages and approaches for the urban environment. What's the biggest difference? What are the biggest differences and maybe challenges in each? How are they different, I guess is a better question.
Also, can I turn it around and say, how are they similar? Because I feel like in this divided world we live in,
Yes, you can.
everybody thinks we're divided, right? Everybody thinks we're different, but we're all humans. And if you're a human who lives out in the country or you're a human who lives in the city, you still have the same values. You still need food, water, clothing, and shelter, the basic necessities of life. And that's what sustainability is about. Sustainability is really about understanding. And when I say sustainability, I mean from the Brundtland Commission report definition, meaning we use what's in nature right now, but we don't deplete it. Instead, we regenerate it so that future generations can use the same resources, right? So we're always continuing to keep going but make it better than it was before.
Yeah. So the similarity being we're humans.
Yeah.
We all have these basic needs. So,
and we're all trying to meet our basic needs.
Yeah.
Right? It might look different in the country versus in an urban area.
Right. But do you find that there's assumptions that a rural family has about the conversation that are different from the urban family's assumptions about the topic?
Yes.
What are those assumptions that people make about it, of why they shouldn't care about it or why it's not about them?
Well, I think a lot of times when people think about the environment or sustainability, they think, well, if I'm in an urban area, I'm paying taxes in my municipality or my local government. They have programs in place that are going to maintain the parks or protect the park, shall we say, right? And they're going to build up the systems so that we can maintain the beauty of the natural world in an urban area. Right? Like I love going to the botanical gardens or to the domes, right? These are beautiful places in urban areas that you can find nature and connect with it. Whereas out in the country, it's more like I own a piece of land. Maybe it's 5 acres or 20 acres. I grew up on a dairy farm. So whatever, I own X amount of land out in the countryside. It's my responsibility to take care of that land. So it's kind of a shift in whose job it is. If you're in the urban area, you think, well, I pay taxes and I live in a community and it's the municipality's job or the government's job, maybe.
Yeah.
Park Service's job. Whereas out in the country, it's like, well, no, it's my job. Like I own this land. But the reality is none of us actually own anything. We just think we do.
Yeah. I'm hoping I own this. I don't even own this pencil, Dylan. I think you do, technically. This. Can I have this?
You can have that.
All right. There we go. I have something. How would you describe what you do to a third grader? Let's start there.
Okay. I'm used to talking to fourth graders.
Okay,
Wow.
fourth grade is good.
All right.
10, 11-year-olds.
Basically, I help businesses to implement practices that will conserve natural resources and help the employees at those companies to be happy and healthy and to give back to the community.
Okay, so that's the, like, I would say you help organizations put systems in place that make Earth better and people better.
Yeah.
Their experience.
So environmental and social, so basically it's environmentally and socially responsible decision making.
But then you also do the marketing about that,
Right.
which is a problem for somebody, that's the kind of problem that you would help a company with. Like
Right.
you do two very distinct things that are related and it makes perfect sense to you. But if you're an outsider, it's like, wait, are you a consultancy for these systems or are you a marketing company?
Actually, we're both. We're a two-pronged business. In the prong one, I like to say we're practitioners of sustainability. So that means I'm not going to ask a company to do anything I haven't done with my company or with any of our clients over the last 17 years. And then the second part is we help, once they've implemented sustainability strategies, actions, or protocols, we then help them to talk about it with their stakeholders. And why this service is needed or why the work we're doing is really unique is that a lot of companies have wonderful marcom teams, marketing communications folks, but those folks aren't trained in operations or in sustainable supply chain or in manufacturing processes. So they don't know how to talk about the sustainability systems or the actions sustainability folks want them to do.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this thing called greenwashing that happens today.
Greenwashing?
Greenwashing.
Tell me more about that.
Have you heard of whitewashing?
Yes.
It's the same thing, except it's for environmental claims. So what happens is, I'm going to say maybe 10 years ago-ish. So I've been working in this space for about 25 years. And about 10 years ago, sustainability kind of went mainstream. So what I mean by that is the first job of sustainability was in 2005, and that was at GE's Eco Imagination. Well, so we're now almost at 20 years, right, of careers in sustainability. So about 10 years ago, there were enough big companies that said, hey, we're going to hire sustainability managers or coordinators. So awesome, bringing sustainability into the operations. But then the sustainability folks are doing one thing, and then they're working with the marcom people, and the marcom people don't know what they're doing, what the sustainability people are doing. So they're like, oh, we think that looks green. We think that's cool. And so they, as we do in the marcom world, finesse the messaging. And they would put the messaging out. And not saying they did this on purpose. I don't think anyone greenwashes on purpose. But they make a statement. And then the Federal Trade Commission said, you can't make that claim because it's inaccurate, because it's not based on science. And so sustainability. So my background is, as I said, rural environmental sociology. So I had to learn all about systems and how to do sustainability before I could talk about it.
Yeah. What would you say was the hardest system, behavior that you've implemented in your own company that you knew it sounded like a great thing and you wanted to do it, but when you tried it, it was like, dang, this is really hard?
Composting. I'm not even going to lie. So, I don't know, 15 years ago, I'm like, we're going to implement composting at the Evolution Marketing office.
Everyone's like, yeah.
And I was like, this is going to be amazing. We got a composter. We got a system in place. And then guess what happened? It failed. And you're going to say, why? Because of human error. Because there's great science to do composting. But what I found out is that it takes humans to implement that system. And maybe humans are used to not putting their banana peel in the composter or not saving their coffee grounds.
Yeah.
So the solution to that was one of our clients does commercial composting. They have a system. It's a bucket system. We got a bucket from them. And every week it gets, or actually, technically it's every other week, they come, they pick up the bucket of compost. So
somebody else takes care of the hard parts.
and they manage it, yes. So all we have to do
Yeah.
is literally, and so when my interns start, day one, this is a compost bucket. This is what goes into compost bucket. This is what does not go into compost bucket. So don't put meat in the compost bucket, right? But you can put coffee grounds in. And so it's kind of like day one, like, what do you need to learn about evolution marketing? This is how we compost.
Yeah. Wow. That's so great. So, somebody who cares about the environment, you made it, it's just part of who you are. It's what you do. How do you manage the tension between the discouraging parts, the sort of the maybe the fears or concerns about the future and the present? How do you manage that with just being a joyful human being? The dark and the light, how do they coexist? How do you manage that?
I think probably everyone finds it challenging sometimes to manage the dark and the light, especially in a time when if you go online, social media, there's so much fear mongering.
Yeah.
So I tend to avoid that in all sincerity. But for me, I grew up on a farm. I learned very young. Do something every day and feel good like you accomplished it. So every day I have a list, even if it's as simple as a checklist, and I check off 10 things on that list, I feel good because I accomplished something.
Mm-hmm.
I love to garden. So sometimes it's like, oh, look at my tomato plants. We've got beautiful tomatoes, and I feel even more accomplished, right?
Yeah.
But it's just finding something every day to I don't even know if it's being proud of, but to feel like you've done something. So I really believe like it's my job to be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So the work that I do every day with my clients, it's all helping to address these systems of inequality that exist in the world.
Mm-hmm. So, was there a specific moment in your life or experience that where you became conscious that this is the thing you wanted to be about, or did you stumble into it and you were just being valuable in it, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I like this a lot?
It's a great question. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer. I was like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a Supreme Court justice. I went off to college at UW-Whitewater. My first day there, one of my friends, we had a going away party, and one of my friends, her uncle was at the graduation party or going away party, and he's like, "Hey, will you do me a favor? I went to Whitewater too, and I have a sociology degree. Will you go visit this professor and just tell him that I say hi?" And I said, "Sure." Like freshman in orientation week, I'm like, "I'll go. Sure, I'll go see him." So I went to meet the professor and say, my good friend, her uncle, wants me to say hello and give you this update on his life, right? And the professor was like, "Well, what are you studying, young lady?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to study business." And he's like, "Tell me why you want to study business." And I'm like, "Well, I really believe that business is the way to solve problems, right? You can use business as a tool to make the world a better place." He's like, "I think you want to be a sociologist." And that one meeting, I changed my major the next day.
Hmm.
And I became a sociologist. And then all through undergrad, my professors were like, "You need to study rural and environmental sociology." I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." What did I end up doing? Studying rural and environmental sociology. And when I got done, I was a marketing director. And when I left the marketing director role, everyone was like, "Start your own business." And I was like, "I don't want to start my own business. It's hard." All the men in my life, like, "You need to start your own business." I did. Here's 17 years later. So I feel like sometimes people can see clearly my path better than I can because I'm in it, right?
That's a beautiful thing about community. I don't think we can ever become our best selves in isolation. We got to have help. So that professor, do you think that was that a lucky guess based on him wanting more people in the program, or he saw something in what you were saying?
He said something what I was saying, and he was a social psychologist, sociological social psychologist, and like that's actually the field I went into. And there's this theory called social constructionism, and how it goes is what you believe to be real is real in its consequences. To me, that's what marketing is. That's what communication is, and that's what our job is as marketers.
Made.
We're helping to make somebody's dream, selling a new product, bringing something to market, a new, more innovative system. We're helping to make that a reality.
Yeah. Um. So Sorry, there's a lot to think about. I'm trying to decide to go deeper into that or to shift gears. When you see a company that's not doing green things, quite the opposite, is it hard to turn and focus on your stuff, or do you feel like sometimes going in and trying to convince, like, how do you relate to things that aren't what they ought to be?
That's a great question. I think because I've been doing this for so long, I have learned that you have to meet people where they're at. And it's not my job to convince you of something or to convince anybody, honestly, of something. But instead, it's my job to be curious and to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and to find a middle ground. Because again, as a sociologist, I really believe that we find shared meaning through language. And so we come to a shared meaning and understanding, and then we can work from there, work forward from that space.
What's the worst thing you've ever done into the environment?
Oh no.
I left a wrapper in a park.
I was gonna say, when I was a young undergraduate and we drank a lot and party in Wisconsin, I might have thrown like Boone's Farm bottles like out a window or something like that and
Yeah.
have recycled them.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst thing I've done for the
Okay.
environment.
Well, you are publicly forgiven. I will speak for the state of Wisconsin.
No tickets for Lisa.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like people needed something to pick up on that highway who were doing the
Well,
adopt a highway. They would have been so bored.
it probably
Mm.
wasn't a highway window. It was probably more like out like on the UW Whitewater campus, some
Oh,
flippies.
yeah.
So
Well, nice job. We forgive you.
I know I gave somebody a job.
Yeah, right. Right. So what would you say is one of the more memorable differences that you've made in a company, whether it be marketing or systems?
Hmm. Okay. There's a lot. There's a lot of them. So I'm thinking about sustainability. Years ago, and I don't remember how many years ago, 10 plus years ago, I did work with the City of Oconomowoc Utilities, and the general manager for the utilities, we had a team. It was called the Lead by Example team. And so it was basically a sustainability team for City of Oconomowoc. And the general manager was on a US and Canadian based this award committee. And so, because Oconomowoc's a public power utility, so it's made up of public power utilities from the US and Canada, and it was called the RP3 award category. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, Lisa, I need to talk to you about something." I was like, "Okay, what's that?" He's like, "I'm on this committee because I just got elected to be like vice president of this big organization, this public power community utility group." I said, "Okay." And he's like, "I want them to put sustainability in, but I don't know how to do that. So can you help me?" So I said, "Of course, I would love to help you." So we worked together. We drafted, so the RP3 awards existed, and then we created like, I'm going to say, another segment of them that was sustainability. And it actually then got built into the RP3 awards. So then all the utilities across the US and Canada who were public power communities who wanted to apply for the award had to start adopting sustainability strategies and actions at their utility. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to qualify for the awards.
Hmm.
And so that to me was a really big deal.
Mhm.
And it was like so happenstance that the person I was working for got elected to this position based on some of the cool stuff we had done in Oconomowoc under his leadership. And then we were able to change a sector, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I love that. Reminds me of, I remember when a mentor of mine told me once, he was summarizing a couple other things that had been written, but it's like whatever you measure most is going to become your culture. And anytime, in marketing and branding, we try to, when a company, we help define this beautiful promise. Like first place we want to talk to about it is HR. Like how do you actually measure this and become this thing? That's a really cool example of that, the kind of shifting. So all of this has me curious about why you are the way you are. So you grew up on a farm.
Dairy
Um,
farm in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and you have a joy, you have a lightness about you, and you have a very disciplined, like paradox of joy and discipline, I think. So why are you like that?
Because on the farm, you, you and maybe this is also why I'm a workaholic. Because on the farm, sometimes there's things you have to do and you may not like it. It's like with any job. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to do job X and it's going to be awesome. And it's never going to be hard. I'm never going to have a bad day. But that's not real, right? Stuff happens. Things are outside of our control. And growing up on the farm, I would learn, like, okay, I'm out in the field. We just rake the hay. We turn the hay over. So now we're waiting for the hay to dry so we could bale it. And you're like, okay, what's the weather look like? You're looking around and a storm's rolling in. Well, shit. We can't bale this hay. It's too wet. So we're gonna have to wait 2 more weeks. So it's kind of being able to adjust to those things that happen outside of us that you would not think about. Because there's so much that's outside of our control. So I just try to manage. I try to respond to everything that's in my control in a manner that um, not per se is positive, but that's doable, workable, right?
Did you really understand that in your beginning of your career, or were there hard experiences you had to go to in order to remember it and like truly know it? Or was it just part of you?
I think it was part of me. I mean, literally growing up on a farm in a pretty rural part of Wisconsin. Um,
Where at?
well, I mean, it was Delafield's not rural, but 30 years ago, 35 years ago, like I was in 4-H, it was really rural and it had like 3,000 people. And so I remember horrible snowstorms. We'd lose power for like a week. And we had a potbelly stove at our house. And so like we'd make all the food on the potbelly stove. And that was normal. We had a generator at the farm because of our bulk tank for milk. But I mean, being out in the rural countryside, you kind of do roll with the punches, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm pretty much I'll roll with the punches. And I also realized early on that I can't control things outside myself. All I can control is my response to any given situation.
Yeah. Okay. Two things. What is Be Local and what is Living Wage US?
All right. So Be Local Wisconsin is the group of Wisconsin-based certified B Corps. I happen to be one of the co-founders of Be Local Wisconsin, so thank you for asking about that. That we co-founded Be Local Wisconsin. There were 5 of us back in 2017. So officially our date was January 1st, 2018. And at that point, we had 6 certified B Corps in Wisconsin. My business became the 7th. I had a client that was one of the first 6. And then today, so this is end of 2024, we have 26 certified B Corps in Wisconsin. So
Wow. Was that part of your mission, is to grow?
the goal was to grow, right? Because the B Corp movement is really about, and so B Locals are a place-based community of certified B Corps. So it's different folks from the certified B Corp movement are working together, and we're a nonprofit in the state of Wisconsin. And so our whole goal is to use business as a force for good and to demonstrate that it is doable to live socially and environmentally responsibly.
My simple definition of a B Corp would be a for-profit business that has put in place systems to hold it accountable to a mission beyond profit.
hmm And also to co-create a more just and equitable set of systems too, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that uh, we're in a climate crisis right now. And so we know that business can help solve that climate crisis. So it's holding business accountable to help address that. The same thing with racial equity. We know that racial equity, centering racial justice, racial equity principles into a business is going to help that business to also be more successful. And that's kind of where the Living Wage US comes in. Living Wage US is a third-party designation, certification, audit of your business operations, and it's tied to all the different things you're doing for your workforce. So I'm really happy we were able to get Living Wage US certification this past summer. Um, and it means a lot because it actually taught us, my team, how to unpack everything that goes into a living wage. It's not just about how much money you're making. It's about everything that goes with it. Like, for example, we're doing financial literacy training so that I can help my workforce to make better decisions for themselves. I can't assume that everybody knows about financial literacy, right? That was actually a big reminder for me going through. I went through a 8-week training program that BLAV US and Canada put on this spring. It was called Impact Improvement for Racial Equity within a Business. And so 2 of us from my team went through that. And one of the things that we talked about was, when did you learn about financial literacy? And I was lucky. I mean, in high school, I had all kinds of business classes. I have no business degree, okay? But in high school, I took business classes, and everything I learned in those classes, I still use to this day in the world running a business. But a lot of people don't learn about business or about accounting in high school. And I kind of just figured, doesn't everybody learn about that in high school? No, I just happened to go to a high school that was really important. We actually created a business when I was in high school.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I learned how to sign checks in my accounting class. And I'm sure they taught us other stuff. But yeah, that's fascinating that you actually took away from it. It was that quality that in high school it stuck with you. So who do you call? Where do you go when you don't know the answer to something?
Depends what it is. So if it's a sustainability question, I have a whole lot of colleagues all across the country and the world that I reach out to and connect with. Kind of just depends what it is. I have an amazing CPA. So when it comes to financial anything with my business, I call her. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I go to the experts basically. It just depends what the question's about.
Yeah. Who would you say are some of the most formative relationships, mentors in your life?
Probably some of the professors I had, both
Really?
undergrad and grad
And you've
school.
tapped into your education experience.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Hardcore. I mean, like I am a sociologist through and through. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
professors, isn't there one that stands out that really, I mean, the one that redirected your entire life is an example, but
yeah, yes. Dr. Snyder was awesome. He amazing professor, E.W. Whitewater. He was the sociology department chair. I'm trying to think, there's a lot of authors. So like Carl Jung, like I love his work. I consider him a sociologist. Some people call him more of a social psychologist. I I differentiate social psychologist from sociological social psychologist. But to me, like Jung is really impactful for me. Um, I'm just trying to think. Like I've read a lot. I read ferociously.
what are you reading right now?
Um,
If you can, off the top of your head.
I don't know the author who wrote the book, but it's called Momentum More Morad. It's a Morad Marty. It's basically death momentums is what the book is about. And so and I could get you the title of the book.
Yeah,
I
it's so
heard it
good.
I heard I heard it on a pod. I heard the author on a podcast. And when I was undergrad, I took a class actually it's called Sociology of Death and Dying.
Hmm.
And hearing the author who wrote the book talking about Mexican culture and the culture of death in Mexico, and she lives in Mexico, and she was talking about how people celebrate life and death and what happens on Day of the Dead and everything. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And I was listening to her, and I'm thinking, like, gosh, this reminds me so much of my undergrad class
Mm.
and understanding that I think when you come to terms with death, how to say this right way. When one is able to understand that we are here for a finite period of time and you come to terms with that and you accept that you too will die, I think it releases you from a lot of the bondages of social constraints or appropriate social behavior, one might say,
Mm-hmm.
that we all are adhering to. And I think maybe the sociology of death and dying class I took as an undergrad maybe taught me that then, but I didn't fully understand it.
Yeah.
So then fast forward like 30 years, right? Or 25 years. And it's like, oh, I understand it now in a different way, right? But I think that was probably very important for my formation and my attitudes and values. I think sometimes people really get stuck in this is so important and I have to overthink this and underthink that and worry about this. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of people in the world who don't have what we have.
Yeah.
We are so incredibly fortunate. There are people dying around the world right now. We're in wars. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are happening. How fortunate are you to be here and to debate what kind of latte you should be having right now?
Yeah.
It kind of puts it all into perspective.
How often are you aware of how often you consciously think about death? Is it a practice? Is it something you do to untangle yourself?
No, I don't. I think it's actually part of like my modus operandi. So I don't think it's like, oh, I could die tomorrow or I could get hit by. I don't think it's like that. I think it's more along the lines of, I want to live each day to its fullest and I don't want to have any regrets. I've seen enough people make decisions and do things and then they regret it later on. That's not how I live. I'm pretty straight up. This is who I am, right? And so in all my relationships, I try to enter relationships, meeting people where they're at, and in a joyous or positive manner, because I feel like every person we touch or we talk to has an impact on us, and we have an impact on them. So shouldn't the impact that I'm having on others be positive?
I thought about death when you were talking about composting. because a while back I interviewed a funeral director who wanted to make a more beneficial impact on the environment, and she composts humans.
Yeah, there's a whole movement towards that right
Oh
now. It's
yeah,
called green burials.
yeah, yeah. And the composting of humans is a fast out. Yeah, that's somebody I would like to interview too on a podcast. But for our client, we did a conversation, and I was in awe of what she was doing and how she got into it. But yeah, death. So speaking more of death, in 100 years, let's say somebody finds your digital trail and they read about your life. What do you hope somebody discovers about you 100 years from now? How might you inspire somebody then?
Well, hopefully they're going to read something that I've written, and hopefully what they read helps them to see that we have choices each and every day, and we can choose to do what's easy, some might say, or we could choose to do what might be more challenging. But by choosing to take the more challenging path or the path least traveled, right, um, you end up having a much more a greater impact or a more meaningful life. I mean, that's how I roll. Uh,
Yeah,
Sometimes my husband gets mad and says, "Just take the easy route," but that's not how I roll.
yeah. When we saw the list of notable marketing executives, um, Dylan asked the question, our producer Dylan asked the question of, what would that look like to interview everybody? Let's just talk to everybody and find out what they're doing. And the more I thought about it, the thing that really attracted me to these conversations is you always have the version of what's notable in a biography. You can read it, but I just love getting to observe people in conversation and discern for myself what I think is notable. And some of I've written down several things that I think are related, and I was just trying to discern like how it all summarizes down. But it was three things of joy, discipline, and present to life.
Yeah, and being present too, right?
Yeah, present to life. Yeah, like being present to life. And then it was like it evolved in my head to what I see in you is like a joyful toughness that doesn't take yourself too seriously.
Right. That's exactly it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, maybe because I grew up on a farm and I was always told no. Whenever I'd ask for something, it was no, no, right?
Yeah.
But we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have a hard time understanding this influencer culture that exists in the world today. It doesn't resonate with me because I don't believe somebody else is more important than somebody else. I think we're all human. We're all important. There's something special and unique about each and every one of us, right? And it's only through having those conversations and finding that shared meaning and actually meeting people where they're at that you could figure that out. But I feel like that's hard. People don't want to do that because it takes work and time.
Yeah. Takes a joyful toughness and the ability to not take yourself too seriously, which is a really cool way to like a discovery about you. That's how you move, and it's awesome. It's really cool. It's thankful that your business exists in this area. I hope that you become more and more known for what you're doing and set more of an example. And because I think when somebody's doing a cool thing, but you're also bringing a valuable just way of being human, it's just great. So thanks for letting me interview you and connect people to your story a little bit. Yeah, we can wrap it up now, but I also have to just at the end of our conversation give one more shout out to our sponsor today that makes this possible.
Energy.
Electricity. Yeah, very similar though. They sometimes go under that moniker of energy, but yeah, electricity always lighten up a room. Much like Lisa Geason Bauer, if I can say. All right. Well, thanks for listening to That's Notable. Follow Lisa on all the things because she has a lot to share. Peace.